Thank you, Wari, Mrs. Wari, and the team members for having me for this evening, for sharing my thoughts and about ANERT's role on the renewable energy development and its strategic importance in terms of the project development on the renewable energy side. So, a warm welcome to all of you here. So, let me share my screen. As you know all about ANERT, actually, ANERT is the state's renewable energy nodal agency in South India, in the state of Kerala. We have been here since 1986. And it has been actually present in all the renewable energy development happening in the states for the last more than 35 years. Of course, just before starting my slides about ANERT and the strategic requirement of renewable energy propagation and implementation in the state, let me share my thoughts on climate change a little bit. Our state is actually spared from bigger kind of calamities for the last several years, but after 2017 itself, we have seen unprecedented changes in the state as well, in terms of Oki, the cyclone, and the mega flood happened in 2018, and it repeated in 2019 and 20. So our state is not spared, just like the rest of India during the monsoon seasons. And of course, the severe kind of calamities are happening around the world as well. Just you might have noticed what is happening to Germany yesterday and what is happening to China, Henan province especially. So it's become a natural kind of happening, like every years you can see this kind of unprecedented scene. So of course, we have to believe in climate science, and we have to believe renewable energy as a mitigation tool for addressing it. That's very important for it. So naturally, the choice of renewable energy is there to fight climate change. It is the best choice, I should say, to address this calamity or to mitigate climate change. There are very many ways, but this is, as a power generation tool, a carbon-free power generation tool, this is the best way you can mitigate climate change and global warming. So coming to ANERT. ANERT, as you know, is the state renewable energy, just like the other renewable energy agencies set up in the states. Of course, it is an autonomous institution, as you know. It is under the Department of Power, Government of Kerala. ANERT was established in 86. So its name became the synonym for renewable energy propagation in the state. Fortunately, I've been with ANERT for the last several years, about 30 years, more than 30 years in the same institution. In between, I took leave and worked in some international organizations, but my lean is with ANERT only. So the state's renewable energy development is happening through ANERT actually. And of course, we are sharing with the state utility as well. The state, the public utility, the state electricity board limited is also working together with us in the renewable energy development in the states, which is the current scenario. Of course, after the MNRE Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has given mandate to the utilities all over the states, all over India, to take up the grid connected projects, primarily by, especially the residential rooftop projects, primarily by state utilities. So KCB Limited is also into the picture of doing renewable energy implementation. And we are joining hands together for doing all the projects in the states and for the strategic development of Kerala in terms of energy. If we look at the history of ANERT, I already told you ANERT was established in '86. We had major programs of Government of India launched from ANERT. The Integrated Rural Energy Program was one of the major programs which was implemented all over the states. Actually, it's under 20-point program. It was the basis of renewable energy propagation. Integrated Rural Energy Program. We were working with the Renewable Energy Integrated Rural Energy Program, or IRP, initially. And wind mapping was started in '89 in the states. More work done in the earlier part of '90s. The first wind mapping at 20-meter height was done in 1990s. Photovoltaic program of, especially on solar home systems, solar street lighting, off-grid PV packs, were also in '90s, more mature in 1994 onwards. We had our first installed grid-connected plant on the rooftop of KCB YQB plant back in 2000. And the first phase of solar, in terms of a bigger project or in the scale of projects, solar village electrification, first phase was implemented from 2000 to 2000 on, then extended to 2002, during which we were fortunate to electrify more than 20,000 tribal hamlets, more than 20,000 tribal homes, bringing lights to the remote tribal colonies. And after that, it was actually a major program driven by ANERT and later copied by many states based on the success of the program. Later, the RVEP, Remote Village Electrification Program of MNRE, has come up. And of course, the National Solar Mission started. And it has come up with a major project of under 2 megawatt, a utility scale solar power plant installation as an IPP, which was the first solar IPP project in the state of Kerala. And we have our wind power generation a bit lower, but still we have IPP projects of 70 megawatt here when compared to other states. And we have various solar on-grid and off-grid campaigns launched in the states back in 2014, 15 and all. Solar Connect was the solar on-grid program, Solar Smart with the solar off-grid program. And Cochin city has been selected as the solar city for the solar city program. And we had a deposit work program and consultancy programs where we install projects around the state in local self-governments and government institutions. Also, we earn revenue on that, which is a short description of our major milestones. And coming to the renewable energy roadmap, of course, this is the latest picture of as on 31st March 2021. The ground-mounted projects is just crossing 36,000 megawatt. And wind power, it will cross shortly. The total installed capacity of solar power will cross the total installed capacity of wind power shortly. So, and as you all know, the nation has a target of 175 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2022. Out of that, more than 100 gigawatt is from solar energy. And coming to the states, and especially when you look at Kerala, state imports more than 70% of, about 70% of electricity from the central grid. So that's why the state government has initiated a major program called State Urja Mission. So that Urja Mission is targeting 1,000 megawatt by 2022. Mostly and majorly by rooftop program. About 500 megawatt has been targeted under rooftop program. And the rest will be from the ground mounted floating solar power plants and other kind of solar power plants. So the target will be 50% of the target will be met by rooftop program. So huge program is coming in the state of Kerala, especially the backdrop of its state's energy generation. Only 30% of energy is generated internally, and we are depending 70% from the central grid. So keeping this reality in mind, the state is aggressively moving ahead for further energy development. So of course, you all know that renewable energy has gained importance globally, nationally, and if you look at any state, most of the power projects are happening in the renewable side, especially on the solar sides. Mega solar projects are being commissioned. And as I mentioned, the state has set up a target of 1,000 megawatt by 2022. And government of Kerala, with the leadership of Sri S. Krishnamurthy, our Honorable Minister for Power, is leading the mission of reaching this target by 2022. And we are joining hands with the KCB Limited to achieve this target. This is the backdrop. This is I already explained about the state targets. Majorly, the projects will be coming from rooftop sector. If you look at the solar PV for India, or if you look at for Kerala also, I'm just taking it as in the perspective of Kerala. These are the quick projects which we can achieve in Kerala. Of course, rooftop power plants will be the major contributors. We have been doing a lot of off-grid projects. I'll be sharing some slides on our major initiative happened on the off-grid rooftop program, 10,000 rooftop program, which was a rare model in Asia and which was copied by many states as well. The program was we were installing 1,000 or 10,000 houses with 1 kilowatt. So then also we launched a lot of off-grid programs under the Solar Smart program, and the Grid Connector program was launched with the major iconic building wiring up with or solarizing with utilizing solar projects. As you know, ground mounted projects, we have a limitation because of the space. State is having very high density of people living here. When compared to the other states, we have a scarcity of land here. We cannot get too much of land here for ground mounted projects. Only wasteland or non-agricultural land can be taken up for ground mounted projects. But state has a peculiarity, as you all know. State has more than 40% of its area is with the water bodies. We have a lot of lakes, reservoirs. So floating solar will be or photovoltaics will be another bigger things coming into our state. And coming into the details for that. And of course, you will have other kind of options. Highway rooftop or canal rooftop or whatever options you can, or as I mentioned initially, a lot of projects will be coming on the wastelands or non-agricultural lands or areas where which cannot be taken up for agricultural or farming purposes and all. And of course, the agri-photovoltaics. Along with the agriculture things, or along with the agricultural sector, you can access PV. So agri-photovoltaics will have an impact in Kerala, especially PM Kusum program has been a major program driving for the state because of the peculiarity where we cannot avoid agricultural programs, but along with that, this should exist. And of course, there will be microgrids and isolated hamlet wiring with the solar will be there. So, as a nutshell, this will be the total programs coming in the state. And coming to wind energy program, I will give a snapshot of what exactly happening. We have around 19 turbines installed of 750 kilowatt in Nedugandam area, and we have another area which is in Palakkad districts. Around 31 turbines of 600 kilowatt has been installed. 31 machines are of Sustron make, and 19 machines in this Nedugandam area is of Vestas make. And currently we are doing a lot of wind energy assessment because you need bankable data for setting up wind farms. So it's not an easy task like solar energy. You need clear bankable data for installing wind farms. And the state, we have identified from the resource map of National Institute of Wind Energy some very potential locations, as you can see in the map. And the major higher density wind power density is coming on the Tamil Nadu side. Of course, we are bordering with Tamil Nadu in the Western Ghat area. We have a lot of potential there in Palakkad districts, Idukki districts, and some part of Kollam districts, and of course in Thiruvananthapuram district near to a hill station. So in terms of wind energy and solar energy, we have a huge potential. And this slide will give you an idea of what exactly, then I will give you a snapshot of what exactly the major projects undertaken by ANERT to give an idea of what has been done in ANERT. So in terms of the large solar farm, we have come up with the first solar IPP project in the state, which is the 2 megawatt solar project set up in Kudalamandam area of Palakkad district. We are generating revenue from that. That was a model we first introduced with our own land. And we have actually, we are owning a land of some bigger area in the Ramakkal-made part of Idukki district, where we are setting up a 500 kilowatt solar wind hybrid station. The solar side has been set up. We will be setting up wind turbines as well, where we will be turning into that area into a renewable energy park. So major development will be coming in the Ramakkal-made area of Idukki districts, where we will be setting up a lot of wind farms and a lot of solar parks, which is coming under a larger renewable energy park, as we have seen a lot of renewable energy parks in the states. So this land is owned by ANERT. So that's why this kind of project will be coming. And of course, we have consultancy projects as well. A lot of consultancy projects for the rooftop sector, and of course, institutions like technoparks, hospitals, educational institutions will be contacting us for setting up projects, and of course, local self-governments as well. we have installed this. This picture is a 200 kilowatt project, a mid rooftop project set up for a local self-government, a municipal corporation named Thrissur, where we had installed a 200 kilowatt plant under the consultancy program. So major program coming in terms of the continuing program in the state is deposit work and consultancy. So where the government institutions can deposit money to ANERT based upon our estimates and all, majorly based upon MNRE benchmark costs. And of course, we'll be installing projects, and some projects will be based upon consultancy, some projects will be on deposit work. In consultancy, which I have been heading the program, where the customers or the government institutions should remit around 6% of the total cost as ANERT charges, as consultancy charges for rooftop sector. But for the megawatt scale, we will be looking at case-to-case basis to determine the consultancy charges, actually. So a major consultancy program is running on behalf of ANERT. So where ANERT is positioning as a consultant, then we are outsourcing to the consultants. ANERT itself positioning as a consultant and implementing a lot of solar projects, especially for the government organizations. And we have done a lot of microgrids as well during our first solar village electrification program in remote tribal hamlets, especially in Idiki, Palakkad, and some other areas and all. These projects are actually dedicated to tribal colonies. In Idiki also. Idiki, a lot of projects have been done as in terms of, still there are potential there for microgrids in Idiki districts, where there are isolated hamlets where you can immediately, very short gestation period is there, you can immediately install solar panels and provide power to the remote communities. These are some of the experiments we have done, part of the major initiative of the solar village electrification program. This picture will give you an idea of the 10,000 rooftop program, which was a subsidized program, a joint venture of MNRE and ANERT. And as I mentioned, the rooftop program is allotted by the ministry to the utilities, and along with we have joined with the KCB Limited to implement the Saura scheme of solar rooftop program, which is a major initiative state under the Urja mission program of 1,000 megawatt. The KCB had announced earlier itself major programs. On the two business models are there. One, actually, there will be share from the beneficiaries, a kind of RESCO setup, and the revenue will be also shared. That is model 1. And model 2 is actually, it will be a capital kind of subsidy. It's a capital, a project which will be invested by the owner itself or customer itself. And of course, the subsidy will be there. The KCB is leading this with this program, and also ANERT is joining hands with the KCB for this program. And in principle, actually, we are looking for sharing some of the projects with the KCB. A total of 250 megawatt project has been allocated to the state of Kerala. This is around more than 12 megawatt, around 50 megawatt project has been, we are in discussion with the KCB, which will be allocated to ANERT. In principle, board has agreed to provide some of the projects to Kerala, to ANERT. And we have a lot of new initiatives coming up under our program. Especially in the budget year, we are planning for a lot of demonstration projects, a lot of solar power plants for the private buildings and institutions. And of course, around 15 megawatt projects on EPC and RESCO model, the same as proposed by KCB, will be implemented by ANERT. And there will be a demonstration program. Of course, we are also switching to floating solar. A major drive will be there for floating solar projects in Kerala, in the state. And ANERT is also implementing the PM KUSUM program, solarization of grid-connected agriculture farms. So under the ABC program, we will be concentrating more on C based upon the suitability to the state. And of course, a lot of grid-connected agricultural pumps will be provided with the solarization. And the farmer will be able to use the generated solar power to for the irrigation needs. And based on the prefixed tariff of the DISCOM, we are proposing to solarize around 5,600 pumps. ANERT has just announced it. And it is according to the tariff plan of KCB. It is ₹2.30 per unit will be benefited by the customer. And there will be subsidy for the program. 30% CFA will be there, which will be central financial assistance, 30% from the state share, 40% from the beneficiary share. And ANERT has their own portal of for doing all these kind of things. We have a portal of www.buymysun.com. We have started registration for this. And subsidy will be up to the 7.5 SP pumps, actually. Mm-hmm. And of course, we are going for some small wind solar hybrid programs as well in this budget year. We'll be going for smaller scale small wind hybrid systems for a hill station near to Trivandrum city, where we'll be setting up, we have a tourist station there. We'll be setting up small wind hybrid systems for the area. And we'll be going for some disaster relief programs, setting up renewable energy systems for the disaster relief camps, especially in the cyclone shelters of some selected districts. There we will be implementing renewable energy systems in the disaster-prone areas. And another side will be we'll be concentrating on some VPP program, virtual power plant program, which will be an innovative kind of program, an R&D program, where we will be conceptualizing a VPP combining different power generation plants like the proposed Ponmudi microgrid and KCB's Meenmutti microgrid hydro project. And of course, it's a combination of various resources like solar, wind, battery, etc. And of course, and even we are combining with the hydro energy, hydro power plants. Then, of course, this will be done with the consultation of National Institute of Wind Energy or other international organizations. We are in touch with them. We have been in discussion with the National Institute of Wind Energy for this, for setting up the VPP project. So this will be a project, a dream project, which will enable us to plan for larger scale distributed energy resources in Kerala. So ANERT wanted to lead on this actually. As you all know, distributed energy resources are taking the primaries as the primary resources for power generation, especially in the Western countries. The distributed energy sources has become has gained a lot of importance in Denmark, in Germany. A lot of smart planning at the local level will be the best choice to manage the energy scenario with the grid. So you have a lot of distributed energy resources are pumped into the grid, which can become a little bit disturbance for the grid if you pump intermittent resources on a regular basis. That's why this PPP is playing a very important role. If you put all this different resources like wind energy, solar energy, battery, or hydro plant together as a single entity, which you can control very easily. That is the way that Germany had led by controlling the local resources and intelligently controlling the local resources and making the energy available. Even at some times, they have achieved around 100% renewable energy for the total load. So this is possible with a very intelligent local management. So that's why ANERT is taking up this intelligent project of combining distributed resources of like small wind energy, solar energy, battery, everything together and making as a single entity to control the whole power scenario. And I already told you about the floating solar prospects in the states. Especially this is important based upon the state's perspective, state's geographical positioning. As you all know, we have a 500 kilowatt floating solar power plant, which was the first mid-size floating solar power plant launched by KCB Limited at the Banasura Sagar Dam Reservoir in Wayanad district, which was around 2,000 solar panels. Commissioned January 2016, and the plant has been commissioned by the public utility KCB Limited and running successfully. And Kerala's water bodies offer huge potential for photovoltaics. We have more than 44 rivers, 27 backwaters, 7 lagoons, which covers 40% of its geographical area. The biggest lake is Vempanad Lake with a 200 square kilometer area. And we have 81 dams actually, out of which major dams owned by KCB Limited, the public utility itself, 59 dams. And irrigation department owns 20 dams, and Kerala Water Authority owns 2 dams and 2 reservoirs. So these 59 dams have 45 reservoirs. So which offer a huge potential for floating solar power plants in the states. This is gaining importance because the state's issue of scarcity of land for setting up huge ground-based solar power plants, as we do in Rajasthan, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, or Andhra Pradesh, or Karnataka. We cannot go for bigger land-based plants. We can go for some agri-photovoltaics, but we cannot go for huge land-based projects like the Pavagada project in Tumkur in Karnataka, or like the Kurnool project in Andhra Pradesh, or Filda project in Rajasthan. We cannot go for that kind of bigger solar parks. Of course, we'll be developing some solar energy on our selected renewable energy park proposed in Ramakkal area. But that will have a limitation. We cannot go for a huge mega size plant like the Pavagada 250 or more than 2,000 megawatt kind of plant. So that's why the importance there for the existing for the photovoltaics or the floating solar power plants, especially on backwaters. And of course, even there is a chance of combining the dam area or reservoir area with the you can combine the reservoirs with the you can use the reservoirs for floating solar power plants. And of course, we have a lot of hydroelectric power plants owned by KCB Limited, and there is a potential for combining or utilizing that reservoir for floating. It's actually emerging, that model of using the same kind of reservoir where you have a plant for generating. So the facility, the advantage is you can use the same facility for power evacuation if you enhance a little bit for evacuating from the floating as well. So the same reservoir you can utilize for generation, and the same facility where you have a facility there for pumping the generated hydroelectric power to the substations or the other stations. The same facility can be used for pumping. Only thing is there should be an intelligent sharing of power, and it will supplement also. It will just like will work complement each other. Daytime you can generate with the PV, and later time you can preserve the water for the peak periods. It becomes an automatic storage. It becomes a natural storage because you are generating power during the daytime, utilizing your PV floating plants and keeping your water beneath, so that it becomes a mega storage for meeting the peak evening loads or evening peak loads. So I'm just telling that as industries and friends joining together for my webinar, we have to give a lot of importance to the floating solar power plants and the plants where you can combine with the combine the existing hydro dams with the floating photovoltaics, which will be very attractive kind of thing when you look at the Kerala perspective. This I already explained. I already told you about the importance of photovoltaics. Yeah, this is the floating, the first IPP project which I have explained. And ANERT has launched another program. Interesting. I wanted to mention our program about the e-mobility here, and we have joined hands with the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, EESL, the national institution, for setting up public EV charging station infrastructure. And we have a program for providing infrastructure for EV infrastructure in different sports, identified sports, especially the tourism sports and the sports provided by the DTPC and the sites provided by the district collectorate, where we'll be installing EV charging infrastructure. Actually, the charging infrastructure will be provided by EESL, and we will be finding, ANERT's role will be finding a space and the facility, the transformer connectivity, everything for providing it. And of course, we will be going for solar or kind of EV infrastructure with renewable energy enabled PV infrastructure, EV infrastructure, EV charging infrastructure. Because as you know that if you go for a lot of EVs into the, or if you put a lot of EV charging, there will be disturbances in the grid. Your duct curve will be becoming, your belly will be again coming down, so that because solar will be, more solar are being installed, even in terms of rooftop, what will happen is more solar will come, and again the evening people will be like that only, and most of the power will be coming on the daytime because of the solar energy. And at the same time, if you again switch your, or if you connect your EVs in the evening time, evening peak time, which will again going to worsen the situation. So where it will be very difficult for the grid to withstand it, because people will have a trend to, if they are owning EV, they will come back from the office and power their EV during the evening time, which will again disturb the grid. So you have to definitely go for solar. Solar or any kind of renewable energy sources should be there for to supplement or to offset the power utilized by the EVs. So the better trend that ANERT is advising is, whenever you go for a EV infrastructure, you back up with the solar energy infrastructure there. And we are providing assistance, financial assistance, 20,000 per kilowatt for off-grid and 18,000 per kilowatt for on-grid, or 50% of the plant cost, whichever is lower. So then it becomes sustainable than becoming kind of a lot of disturbance to the grid. I will show you. There is another program currently running. We are providing the e-mobility services, or we are providing electric vehicles to government institutions, replacing their IC engine vehicles with the electric vehicles. More than 100 vehicles have been handed over to different government departments. Actually, on some basis, actually a monthly payment is there to ANERT. It is on lease contract to the government organizations. We are just replacing the government organizations' IC engine-based old cars by EVs. We have our own EV charging station set up at in front of ANERT, and different EV charging stations are being set up. It's also going on along with the EV program. I think this concept I already explained, the floating solar with hydro, which will be the major kind of things happening in Kerala in the years coming. And renewables with the storage should be the other great option to address the issue of the grid stability. So because you cannot make your duck or your belly becoming lower and lower. So storage solution should be there for if you go for because I understand that in a lot of Western countries they are giving sanctions, or they are allocating solar rooftop power plants along with the Tesla model batteries, or the batteries along with this package, where it's like a grid storage or grid level battery, where the battery will power to the grid and complement for whenever it is required. So that's actually needed. So the grid storage will be for large storage systems we don't need, because we are not going to set up large grid-based solar farms here. But of course, the systems with the islanding systems, or the usual systems will be like when you go for the grid-connected systems, of course, it will be without battery. When you go for the islanding systems or off-grid systems, it will be with the battery. What I am telling is, if you can utilize an intentional islanding system, where you have options for grid-connected systems, at the same time you have an intentional islanding where you can plug, you have a battery system and plug to your system to charge the battery, a smaller battery, which will be something, an ideal system for Kerala, according to my opinion. Because you have a lot of outrage happening because of the greenery around, because trees felling on the LT lines will be making a major issue in major part in Kerala. So if you have a small storage along with the grid connectivity, it will be a wonderful option in Kerala. And even if you make a something which can pump to the grid also, which will make the grid more stable. So intentional islanding is very important. So we have to go for projects like hybrid-based inverters or PV hybrid systems, where inverters used, where the hybrid inverters are used, where you can have the international islanding facility, where you can connect your battery into it. At the same time, you have the same kind of certifications for all the inverters with the grid connected systems. All the IEC 62116, the anti-islanding testing requirements, IEC, and IEC 61727, the inverter switching or working parallelly to the grid, which is and addressing the flicker and the DC injection, everything. So IEC 61727, it should comply along with the IEC 62116. Then it should have all the IEC 61000, the electromagnetic compatibility certifications. So all this grid connected plants or grid connected inverter certification should be there for the islanding system as well. It's very important. Otherwise, we cannot connect this system to the grid, because utilities won't be allowing. In fact, in the draft CEA regulations happened in 2014, it was there. The international islanding was there, but later it was dropped. I hope that this will be a reality in future, so that utilities will agree 100% to have a system where you can have a grid connected system, you can have an off-grid system, and those who wish to have a both together, an international islanding system where you can, whenever it is power is there, it works as a grid connected system, and when the power is not there, it will island and provide power from battery, from the plugged-in battery, and provide some emergency lighting or short-term lighting and solutions to the customer. And pumped hydro is another great example project we can implement here. Like this will also make our evening peaks addressed. A lot of exams are happening in Australia, in Sweden. Some of the projects are coming up in the pipeline. So pumped hydro, because of the geographical situation in Kerala, pumped hydro is having a very good importance. And of course, blockchain. Of course, blockchain is coming mostly on the banking sector. But blockchain is being implemented a lot into the distributed energy generation sector. A lot of distributed energy generation side, blockchain application is coming. Blockchain is nothing but an automated kind of electronic ledger where you have individual identities, individual hashtags for individual customers. Each individual customer will become a prosumer. They will become a consumer and they will generate power and produce power. So they will become a prosumer. So the new things coming up will be the blockchain. But Kerala has a particular importance for implementing blockchain because Kerala has a very good local self-government system. We have wonderful local self-governments, Gram Panchayats, Block Panchayats and District Panchayats under the Panchayati Raj system. And like very excellent setup after the local planning program implemented back in 1996-97. There onwards, these Gram Panchayats, Block Panchayats and District Panchayats are working efficiently, and that's why a lot of projects are coming to ANERT in terms of consultancy and deposit work from the local self-governments, especially from the Gram Panchayat, the local level. Since we have an efficient local self-governments running, and we have an efficient local self-government department under the government of Kerala, we have a plan. We can join hands with them to implement the distributed energy generation, because Panchayati Raj Act itself says that the local self-government, especially the district panchayat, has the rights to implement the generation projects. We have an excellent example in Palakkad districts, where the Palakkad district panchayat has come up with a micro hydro project of their own. The utilities was not responsible for that project. The local self-government, the district panchayat itself implemented meanwhile and hydroelectric projects. So in that way, my opinion is that because of our excellent system, especially in Kerala, local self-governments can empower to to have the local distribution system, very good plan of that, intelligently implementing in the local areas where you can generate power decentrally, distribute it among themselves, intelligently control through blockchain, operate it through blockchain. So that's a fantastic opportunity for Kerala. I think all the companies or smart companies and solar module manufacturers like Wari should come forward for this kind of experiment, which will offer a great potential for them, especially in the state like Kerala, where we can have distributed generation, where a lot of people will adapt to the decentralized systems. Yeah, that will be a wonderful system where slowly the utility is vanishing and people becoming empowered to generate power. As I mentioned, the consumer becoming prosumers. For that, the potential is there. No, this is coming. I'm referring from an old study of a bit old. I think it came in 2013 or 14 from WWF and World Institute of Sustainable Energy based out of Pune. They predicted around 13,000 megawatt for rooftop sector based on some GIS based potential assessment for Kerala, and 18,000 megawatt for industrial sector. 13,000 megawatt for 13,079 megawatt for the rooftop sector, and 18,000 megawatt for the industrial commercial sector. So total 31,000 megawatt potential is there for the total rooftop sector in Kerala. Remember, Kerala has a total installed capacity of electricity is 2,000, just below 2,900 megawatt or above 2,800 megawatt, or only 2.8 gigawatt or something above that. Where you have 31 gigawatt, you can come from the solar sector. Solar rooftop sector alone. I'm not telling about the ground mounted plants. So if you take 10% of this, I'm not going for the entire WWF study. If you take 10% of that, if you take out of this 13,000, you take 1,300, 10%. Out of this 18,000 megawatt, you take 10%, 1,800. That itself will bring more than the installed capacity of what Kerala has, with a very short gestation period. See, amazing possibility is there, amazing potential is there in Kerala. We have to see the reality. And with a short gestation period, we can implement it. We have a lot of connected network here, with the people with a lot of awareness there, with a lot of with an efficient, intelligent local self-government setup is there. And of course, there will be some areas, isolated areas, non-agricultural lands, unused lands, where you can go for 1,000. They predicted around 4,000 megawatts. And actually, 1,000 megawatt is easily possible based on my assumption. I'm just concluding my thoughts. You might have heard of doughnut economics. I just read from this is in Dutch. She's actually she's a Netherlands-based scientist, economist, Kate Raworth. Kate Raworth was telling about she invented the model of doughnut economics. She says about an ideal state. You can read that doughnut economics, the book from Kate Raworth. It's available in Amazon. She says about an ideal state where you have a social foundation with an ecological ceiling. So a social foundation is very important. The doughnut represents a social foundation. And of course, there is an ecological ceiling. This exactly depicts it. You can see the the social foundation here with energy, water, food, health, education, like political voice, social equity, peace and justice, no gender discrimination. This is the social foundation. And of course, with an ecological ceiling of climate change, ozone layer depletion, ozone acidification, issues. These are issues. So we have to see that it does not overshoot. That's very important. We have to prevent the overshoots. So the state of Kerala, I would like to say that by reading Kate Rawath, the state of Kerala has its potential to think sustainably, to become carbon neutral. So you can have, of course, energy, water, and food. Energy is a very important part of this. Energy, we have to be self-sustainable. Self-sustainable means that we have to generate ourselves. That's why I was telling about generating our rooftop power, generating our floating solar power plants, and becoming sustainable than importing power from the grid. So it's an ideal model, and we have to see that there are no overshoots. It's possible. It should be a kind of cooperation between the government and all the private players, like the institutions, like module manufacturers, like Worry. A lot of intelligent manufacturing setup is there in the nation. I know that the PV module sector becoming the DCR modules, like the domestic content manufacturing is enabled in some of the subsidy programs. We have to obey with that. We have to comply with that. And the advantage of that is the state has, the nation has made self-sufficient in the module manufacturing and cell manufacturing. So it's becoming slowly becoming or quickly becoming, it's not slowly, quickly becoming self-sufficient. A lot of big manufacturers have their own kind of setup here of module manufacturing and cell manufacturing, which becomes us proud and independent. So it's very important that we have the indigenous manufacturing for inverters as well. Currently, we don't have. So we have to think we have a lot of power electronics based government institutions and private institutions, and of course a lot of manufacturing happening in India of international players. I know that a lot of international players are manufacturing in India, in Chennai, in Pune. A lot of manufacturing setup is there, but we have to be self-sufficient in terms of all these intelligent components of our solar PV system, like inverters, modules, string combiner boxes, earthing systems, surge protection devices, cables. Especially on PV side, PV we already achieved, and inverters we have to achieve a lot, because still we have a lot of imports coming for the inverter sector. So I'm just giving an example of how we can become more sustainable. The state of Kerala has very high potential for becoming it, and without these overshoots, becoming an ideal state of, for that, the energy generation, the self-sufficiency in energy generation is very important, where solar energy and wind energy can play a very important role. And with that note, thank you very much. You can get my email address, IDs here. And thank you, Ari, for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity to speak.